G'day everyone. This podcast will rock your world, blow your mind, blow your socks off, all the good stuff. So I'm here with Stephan Spencer, who was a recommendation from James Franco. So we were very blessed to have him on. He is the host of Optimise Your Life and Business podcast. He is just all about create maximum impact and legacy, improving your health, wealth, and more. Like seriously, his wisdom and knowledge is just so vast, it's absolutely ridiculous. He's a biohacker, he's invested himself like crazy, done all the next level Tony Robbins events, everything, and we talk about all of it. There are so many practical tools and knowledge and tips in this podcast just for if you want to be better for your business, for yourself, things to look at, things to invest in, stuff to read, stuff to learn. It was just insane. Like it just didn't stop the whole time. So if you are very interested in that, I suggest you listen to this thing the whole way through, because we sort of like, we start at one end of stuff, but then we start transforming the whole way through. You don't want to miss anything. Like there's some stuff in there that's like, I'm definitely taking away and I've used with my clients and stuff already, which is quite fantastic. So I hope you like this one as much as I did. So essentially, if you guys also want to learn about yourself and you guys want to get like healthy, if you have any parts in your life at the moment where it's like things seem a little bit hard and you could want to make them better, is I have a free quiz on my website, coreybartwell.com. You can have a look and click that quiz there and see how you go with that. I also, if you guys didn't know, I've been training in the gym obviously for like 13 years and I've got a pro card in fitness competitions, and I did it all naturally. All right, I did it all naturally. It's like, whoa, how'd you do that, man? So essentially for the first 5-6 years of my career in the gym I was in a shed in my own house, in my own backyard, and I had to learn how to train. I didn't have like someone in a gym teaching you. We just had like dumbbells and stuff. So I got really connected with my body. I had to learn all the different angles, techniques, how to squeeze. I got really in touch and got a real good muscle to mind and muscle to body, mind to muscle connection, which takes time to really learn how to do. And throughout that time, I didn't end up joining a gym till I was 21. And when I did, people were like, whoa, man, how'd you create that body? And I was like, well, I just focused really hard. I had to learn all these different tips, secrets, and all these different things. And then when I got to a gym, I honed and I cultivated them and used the gym as best as possible for myself in order to build a physique that I myself am extremely proud of, and it brings me a lot of confidence. And I share all of these tools and secrets. And also, I don't think I've missed like a gym session in like 13 years. Something crazy. When I started, I haven't really stopped, but that's because I optimized my mind for that. And if you want to learn how to get motivated, you want to get confident, you want to learn like step by step all the secrets, the tools, the resources, and how I actually do everything, I put it all into an educational course that you'd only have to watch like half an hour every single day for I'd say 2 to 3 weeks before you completely optimize yourself. Is you can get that if you just DM me program on Instagram, or just send me a message on Instagram and we can have a chat, and I can like step by step show you how all of that works. So I look forward to hearing from you on there. Also, Best of the Bone have a bone broth which is just so fantastic. They do it on this method which is old school. They don't use any heat or high pressure therapy, and the quality of the bone broth is ridiculous. And you can get 12% off if you use the code Corey12 on Best of the Bones website, or just head to my Instagram bio to figure that out. I also have a recipe ebook which is available, and how I come up with that was I just figured out what all the best ingredients were for the general population, where they're taking out the dairy and the gluten stuff, and then I was like, how do we make tasty recipes like this which are easy? So I went through, I figured all of those different things out, and I put them into a recipe ebook. And there's got meal prep stuff, you got your different bone broth recipes, you've got like dinner recipes, you've got snack recipes, you've got just normal recipes of like how you can use all different things, like, and they're just quite fantastic. I keep getting all this really good feedback from the recipe ebook. So guys, please grab that. I really encourage you to get that, and you can get that by just clicking on one of the links below. So without any further ado, guys, I'm so excited to bring to you this podcast with Stephan Spencer. It was quite fantastic, and we just went through a whole bunch of awesome stuff, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did, and we'll see you in the next one. G'day, Stephan. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So just a quick question for you. Recently, what do you think are some of the best lessons that you have learnt, or if you've been researching something or something that you've tried out for yourself specifically? What's some stuff that recently you've been doing or trying that you think's been really cool?
Well, this is a little out there, but it's just what pops to mind first, and it has to do with developing psychic abilities. So I never
What?
thought of myself as psychic,
Yeah.
and I didn't really have any interest in it up until a year ago when I had a guest on my podcast who was psychic, and he saved my family member's life during the interview. And I thought, okay, there's something to this, because like, what are the odds that that would happen?
Yeah.
Uh,
Would you mind
it
telling that
just it,
story real quickly? Because
okay, yeah, sure. And I know we're starting off on a real tangent here. Okay, so
so
my
good.
podcast, Get Yourself Optimized, covers the whole gamut of everything about personal development and biohacking and productivity, and there's some spiritual episodes in there too. And this guy I met in a mastermind I'm in, a mastermind called Metal, introduced himself in a Metal breakout Zoom room as an ad guy, copywriter. Oh, and he's also a psychic medium. And I'm like, what? Tell me more about that last bit. And he did. And I'm like, wow, you sound like the real deal. I got to have you on my podcast, because this guy was the real deal. He is the real deal. There were 700 psychics that were interviewed by, I forget which TV network. It was a big one, like NBC or Fox or something like that. And of those 700, he was one of those who made it into the top 10, who then made it onto the show. And then he won the show. It was called Gifted, or The Most Gifted, something like that. And they threw all these crazy challenges at him. Like, there were people he couldn't possibly know what their connections were and stuff. He was given no information. And yeah, he, like, there's this one clip I watched of him on that show. These three people were similar aged. He said, "You guys went to school together?" And they're like, "Yep." You know, like, I'm seeing classrooms and desks, but I'm also seeing army boots and stuff. And this doesn't feel like a military school. And then he figures it out from the visions that he's getting, that you went to Columbine.
What?
Columbine,
Yeah.
where
Well, the
those,
shootings happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they were there. And then he was able to tell that you went and hid in the library, and you ran out the back door. And he got it 99% right. Like, the one person who he said hid in the library, was actually hiding under the library. But everything else was spot on. I'm like, okay, I got to have you on.
Yeah.
And when I interviewed him, I had already cleared the deck so that I could move to Florida from LA. And so I didn't have any other interviews. I had 3 weeks, cleared the deck, no interview scheduled, but I felt compelled to have him on. So I'm interviewing him, and my wife knows that I'm interviewing a psychic. And I'm asking her beforehand, "Do you have any questions for him?" She's like, "No, I don't." But then she interrupts my interview, slips a piece of paper to me, and it asks a question on there. Is this person, who I'm going to not say who it is, but a very close family member, having a stroke right now? And I interrupted the interview to ask him this, and he told me absolutely she is. And here's what it's going to look like if she doesn't go to the hospital. And she wasn't going to go to the hospital. She didn't think she had a stroke. She thought she was fine. And we couldn't go over. She was very far away, so we couldn't go drive there or anything. We had to convince her over the phone, based on hearing from a psychic, that that was a stroke. But we did, and it saved her life. And so that opened the door to me thinking, okay, maybe there's something to this psychic thing. And then the guy just happened to live 10 minutes away from us. Like, what are the odds? 10 minutes away. So we went and got a reading from him. My wife and our baby and me, we all went. And I brought some stuff of my mother's for him to tune into. There's this aspect of psychic phenomenon called psychometry. I didn't know what that was. I was completely clueless to this whole world, right? You touch some object, maybe something that somebody wore quite a lot, like a ring or something, and allows you to boost the signal, tune in, and get a stronger signal from that person or from the object itself or from both. And he told me stuff about my mom that he couldn't have possibly have known, that stuff I'd even forgotten myself. So I'm like, wow, this is so real. This is so freaking real. And then I interviewed another psychic medium. This was in November of last year. Her name is Sheila Gillette. Again, very much the real deal. And she channels 12 archangels. And when I was prepping for the, I know this sounds like fantastical. If you would have told my 14-month younger version of me this story, I would have been like, yeah, BS.
Yeah.
Because I was not into this whole thing. So, anyways, I had her on, but before I did, I prepped for the interview and I watched some videos of her. There was this one video where she talks about her near-death experience. 1969, she had just given birth and she had an embolism and it was not looking good. Like she was on her way out. She was definitely going to die. And she's praying on her deathbed, please, God, give me a job. Let me stay on this planet. Let me raise my kids. I'll do anything. Just please give me a job. So a few months after that, I decide to start praying for a job. I have a successful internet firm, agency. We do SEO and stuff. I don't need a job, but I just felt so connected to what she had asked for. And what happened right after, she got a miraculous immediate healing. The doctors were flabbergasted. And yeah, she was able to just walk out of the hospital. And she, during this process of the healing, Jesus showed up at the foot of her bed, and she felt this energy flowing into her top of her head, the crown chakra. And then she started having these psychic phenomenon and being able to start channeling. And yeah, the rest is history. I know. And she's actually pretty famous because Esther Hicks, who's very famous, like she's on the movie The Secret and all that. She's a big deal. There's many millions of books sold. She channels a group of entities called Abraham. And Esther didn't have any of this at the beginning. This was something she developed. And the first person that she saw who told her to start listening to her intuition and develop these abilities was Sheila Gillette. So, so if you're interested in this world, watch that interview of Sheila Gillette. It's amazing on my podcast on Get Yourself Optimized. And that started a whole journey for me that started this year, January 22nd, where I made that prayer request to give me a job. And then I saw stuff that it's like the Matrix was revealed to me. So I know it sounds crazy, but it's real. It's like the universe, this reality we're experiencing is a simulation of sorts, not the kind that Elon Musk thinks it is, but it's more of a simulation or a movie than it is the physical reality we think it is. And this rocked my world like you wouldn't believe. I'm a scientist. I was a skeptic, and I spent the first 42 years of my life being agnostic, not even believing, not being certain there was no God, but leaning towards that conclusion. And then my whole world got turned upside down in 2012 when I went to India and I got touched on the head by a monk who gave me a Diksha, oneness blessing. And it was like an LSD trip. Everything was in Technicolor, like the most amazing, vibrant colors I'd ever seen, like from a cartoon. And I felt so deeply connected to everything and everybody and the creator. And that started this whole ball rolling of all these miracles and everything. And then the big next jump for me was January 22nd, when I just out of the blue decided I'm going to pray for a job.
Yeah, and there was no like plant medicines involved in that, right? There was no
Nothing.
plant
I've never even
medicine.
smoked a
There was
cigarette.
there was no
I've not
injections into your brain. There was no other stem
nothing.
cell stuff into your third eye. Like what?
No, no, no,
Yeah.
no. But I'll tell you, a year ago, there was this lady that I actually just interviewed on my podcast. She did this chakra healing thing on me that my wife had recommended I go try out because she knows the lady and trusts her. And this lady told me, I've never seen a more open third eye. And at the time, this was prior to even the whole experience with the medium saving my family member's life. I was surprised. I was a little bit not skeptical, but I found it a little hard to believe that my third eye was so open that out of the how many hundreds or thousands of people she's seen over the years, that I was the most open of them all, or one of the top two, or something like that. And I can see it now in retrospect. I was being prepped for this. So now I got a job. It's like I'm supposed to help the skeptics to see that there's a bigger picture here. Like, because I was a skeptic,
Tough gig.
and it is a tough gig. It
Yeah.
is. And for somebody who is not known as a spiritual person, really, I'm known as a geek. I've got these technical books I've either written or co-written that are all about search engine optimization and social media and how Google works and everything. And then I'm supposed to be out there as like an ambassador of spirituality. I'm game. I mean, I did ask for it. I asked for a job, so now I'm gonna perform.
And here you are,
And
and you
I
got
don't
to
know
serve.
how that's gonna unfold, but I gotta be, courageous, speak my truth, and whoever's gonna ridicule me or whatever is gonna do that, but and judge, because that's just the nature of humanity and human nature. But
Yeah,
it's all good because I got to put myself out there and help the people who are looking for the help.
for sure. And the ones that do and are looking for the help is like you're significantly going to impact, which is like
Yeah.
fantastic. And that's like obviously a mission and a goal to do for sure.
Yeah. Well, I learned this from Bob Allen, who sold, I don't know, 10, 20 some million books. He's author of Flash into Cash, 1 Minute Millionaire, um, Multiple Streams of Income, a whole bunch of great books. He explained to me once that you're not here for the people in the audience who have the frowny faces. Don't try to win them over. They're not for you. You're not for them. It's the smiley faces that you're there for. Speak to them. You're here for the smiley faces. They're here for you. That's who you're connecting to. So when I'm on stage speaking at a conference, I no longer worry about winning over those frowny faces or the people with the other nose in their phones and don't give a hoot about what I'm talking about. They're not here for me, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolute lesson there, and that's for sure. And to like have that deeply solidified within your mind, I think would be extremely important. I'd like to actually get
Yeah.
into some of the geeky stuff, if you don't mind.
Oh
I'd
yeah,
love to
let's do it.
yeah, because I love all of that stuff. And one of the things that like I talk a lot about to my clients, just go straight for it, is just if you have the resources to invest in yourself with stem cell therapy, like I think why not? Just from what I've researched and the people that I trust and listen to, I'm like, this is got to be one of the best things ever. What's been like your experience with it? Because I remember reading, even like researching to a lot of Ben Greenfield stuff with it, and obviously it's got its pros and cons. But yeah, I'd love to hear your experience, why you went into there, and how it was for you.
Yeah. Well, what I've done is not quite the full body makeover, but it's pretty close. My wife did it too. We went to Park City, Utah. Dr. Harry Adelson is Dave Asprey's stem cell doctor. We went to him. Dave Asprey is a client, by the way, of mine. So here's how it unfolded. We basically got put under. we had stem cells harvested from our bone marrow and our adipose tissue from our fat in the back, and the stem cells were extracted out of both and then put back together. And the reason why stem cells were pulled from adipose tissue is because you can get millions of stem cells from that. But the downside is the efficacy is hit or miss sometimes. So pulling it from the bone marrow gets you a lot fewer stem cells. You might get tens of thousands instead of millions, but then the efficacy of those are very high. So the protocol that Dr. Adelson uses is he mixes both, and then they re-inject into different parts of the body. So my wife had some shoulder pain, and so he injected into her shoulder joint. I had a little tweak of something in one of my knees, in my left knee. So he injected some there. I was under for all of this process. And then we did what's called microneedling of our face, neck, and scalp. And what that does is it helps rejuvenate and kind of turn back the clock on aging of the skin. And that also included not just stem cells, but PRP, platelet-rich plasma. And I did a Facebook Live right after waking up from it, and I looked like I was roadkill or something. It was pretty funny. And yeah, my wife was kind enough to be willing to be on the video too. So we were talking about what the process was like and everything. It was really funny. You might want to include that in a link to that in the show notes or an embed of it. So the idea of stem cell therapy is that this will give you the ability to kind of turn the clock back on aging, and it will also potentially heal your, I don't know, let's say you've got some issues with the knee joint and the cartilage being worn down, or chronic pain in your back or what have you. These sorts of things can get addressed from my understanding. And I'm going to give you all the disclaimers here. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. This is not medical advice, right? But the idea of it is very compelling, I think. So we gave it a go, and it was almost immediate for my wife who had the pain. I'm a biohacker. I love this stuff. So I just wanted to try everything and anything. I didn't have a particular need. I just wanted to try it out. But she had a need. She had real pain in her left shoulder and her left wrist. And both of those got 95% better.
Whoa.
Which is pretty darn good, because she was not a happy camper with the chronic pain. And having that ameliorate like that was really amazing. She stressed it a lot a couple of years later. We have a baby who's now a toddler, but she had to carry him a lot and everything. And then that kind of started the pain back again. But for a year and a half, she was 95% better. It's just really, really cool. Whoa. And if you're curious to see the potential impact of something like this, there's a great video on YouTube of this dog who is severely arthritic, really old dog. It couldn't even walk up the stairs. As it was trying to walk up the stairs, it would collapse and fall back down. It was heart-wrenching watching this thing. And then they took him in for stem cell treatment. And then they showed different weeks of progression after the stem cell treatment until the point where he was thin again and he was running after balls, and he looked like a different dog. It was amazing. So this stuff is very compelling, I think. Now, as I said, I try lots of different modalities and stuff. I love biohacking. So I'm doing things like Health Nucleus, where they do a full body MRI scan, the full blood work, stuff that you don't even do at a more of a functional medicine doc. They just go to the nth degree. They also did full genetic screening, full DNA sequencing. So when you get a genetic test like 23andMe or Ancestry.com or whatever, typically they're not doing much They're just looking for SNPs, the single nucleotide polymorphisms.
Yeah, the SNPs.
Whereas with the full sequencing of 95% of your DNA, and by the way, this idea of junk DNA, there is no junk. God doesn't make junk. It's there for other reasons, and which we could talk about if you want to kind of get off on a tangent. But this is so important to get your whole genome sequenced and then have that analyzed. There's so much to learn about what to eat, how to work out, how much aerobic activity versus anaerobic. It really, it gives you a lot of actionable insights to apply to your life. It's not just, oh shoot, I'm going to end up with Alzheimer's and have a horrible end to my life. For one thing, that's not, your genes don't define your destiny. And secondly, wouldn't you want to know if you've got two of the ApoE4 alleles, that's not the prognosis isn't that great, but you can do something about it by changing your diet and doing more preventative things than you would have normally done for Alzheimer's, because you know this, right? So what gets measured gets managed, and I think at least for me, I would want to know. I want to know this stuff. And so I'm doing all those kinds of screenings. I went and got a SPECT scan from Dr. Daniel Amen from Amen Clinics, author of Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. Went to his clinic.
What was that like?
So did my wife. We do this stuff together. Couples who biohack together stay together. So it was really, really cool, really helpful. One thing I learned, and I share this in the episode where I interviewed Dr. Amen on Get Yourself Optimized, is that there's this thing called a diamond pattern, where you're kind of ruminating and it's looping. You just ruminate on something, and that's because of abnormal activity levels in 4 different parts of your brain. And you can take some supplements, herbal supplements that boost GABA and stuff that will ameliorate that. Again, if you know, you can manage it, you can address it, but if you don't know, you're flying blind. So I would get stuck in loops where I just like, somebody did something to me and I just can't let it go. Why am I not letting it go? Well, now I can let it go. I mean, I've also worked on myself spiritually, so I'm much better at letting it go now. But identifying these sorts of abnormal amounts of blood flow, too much, too little, or whatever, in different parts of the brain gives you insight on what's happening in a functional level, not just structural. An MRI is structural, where SPECT is functional. SPECT. So yeah, we could go on and on. I love this stuff.
Dude, there's so much crazy stuff. I just have a question for you, because I'm super curious. Yeah. Is what do you think for you personally in terms of because obviously you've done a lot of work, you've done all the DNA, you've tested your body rigorously, so you really understand exactly what to do. But in terms of just the biggest bang for your buck, naturally, using all the natural stuff without jumping into the biohacks, what were the biggest bang for your bucks with sort of heading that direction? And then what were the biggest bang for your buck that you think you got out of in terms of some more of the advanced biohacking?
Yeah. So the simple stuff are things like mouth tape, Aura ring, meditating, these are so basic. So basic, right? Yeah. So you get an Aura ring. I'm wearing one right here. It tracks your sleep. It tracks your HRV, heart rate variability, your heart rate, activity level, all that sort of stuff. And that gives you some insight into what's working and what's not working. And then you can start making adjustments. Like, all right, I am not sleeping as well as I thought I was, or as I would like to. So I'm going to try some things like I'll wear an eye mask, because if I can see my hand when the lights are out in my room, I am getting too much light exposure. You should not be able to see your hand. So if that's the case and you can't get blackout blinds or curtains, then wear a sleep mask, an eye mask. So that's basic. And also reduce your blue light exposure as much as possible. So I have the Flex app installed on my computer, and most devices have the ability to go into like a less blue light mode. Although you still get some blue light, it's significantly less. And you could take it to another level and reduce it even more by wearing uh, glasses like True Dark glasses, the Twilight uh, uh, glasses from True Dark are for nighttime, and then the Daywalkers are for daytime, afternoon sort of stuff. But once it's dark outside, you put the Twilights on, which everything looks really red. It takes some getting used to. It's not so fun watching movies with it on, but yeah, if you get more disciplined about this, you're going to get better and better sleep. But the thing that made the biggest impact for me recently was starting to wear mouth tape, which I've been doing for the last month or so, and I can see it on the reports on my Aura Ring app. I'm waking up less during the night. I would wake up so many times during the night, and that's reduced by at least half now.
Well,
If you snore, definitely look at mouth tape as a potential option. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. This is not medical advice. Okay, but what mouth tape does is it forces you. Forces maybe too strong of a word. It highly encourages your body to breathe from your nose instead of your mouth, and you're not going to snore if you're breathing from your nose, right? And the air that you intake is going to be much cleaner because it's going through all the filtering of the nose hairs, and it's going to be moister. And it's just going to be so much better. You won't probably eat any spiders in the middle of the night too. And it will have an impact, I think, on the quality of your sleep and on your longevity, apparently, from what I'm understanding from James Nestor and all the research he's done. Goes into the book Breath by James Nestor. Highly recommend that book. Yeah, so these are simple things, and there's so many more that you could do. Things that will just make life better, because if you sleep better, you will live better. Put your bed at an angle so that your head is higher up, not like from a pillow, but actually jack your bed up by put something like a wooden block underneath each side of the bed on your headboard, right? So that you're maybe 6 inches up at the top of the bed
so
versus the foot of the bed.
Instead of being like 90 degrees, you'd be like 80.
Yeah, so so instead of completely horizontal, you're at, so maybe a 5 or 10 degree angle, whatever 6 inches ends up being.
Yeah.
That's a very inexpensive, very straightforward, quote unquote biohack. That's not so hacky. It's just good common sense, because these things are based on science. I didn't figure that one on my own. I learned that from interviewing an expert, one of the sleep experts on my podcast. I forget which one, but I love this stuff, and I love experimenting and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And some things haven't moved the needle much for me, and some things have. I'll tell you one thing that I was stuck on and took me ages to figure out. Finally, I got it. Was how to lose the belly fat. I know that sounds like a clickbait headline or something, but it's really important. That visceral fat wraps around your internal organs and it chokes your organs, and it's not good for you. It leads to early mortality. So I wanted to get rid of the belly fat. And I'm almost 51 years old, and I know I don't look it. You don't have to say it.
Because you don't look at me.
Thank you. And I just wanted to have a flat stomach, and that seemed so elusive to me. And I love sugar. I did go 2.5 years without eating sugar. That was really hard. But then I fell off the wagon, and I just chowed down so much sugar I made up for those 2.5 years. So now I'm at the end of a 42-day challenge. It's a 42-day metabolic reset. And this worked like gangbusters. I learned this protocol from Sachin Patel. Met him through Genius Network, Joe Polish's mastermind that we're both in. And it's just been killer. You eat twice a day, no snacking in between. It's within an 8-hour eating window, 16-hour fasting window, and those two meals are devoid of any carbs, sugar, of course, or of oil. 4 ounces of veggies, fruits, and proteins twice a day. That's your meals, and that's it. And I'm down to 13.8% body fat. I
Nice.
lost 23 pounds. When people saw me, they didn't think of me as anything but slender and, relatively fit. I had a little bit of a pudge there, but not not really recognizable. I'd have to wear something really tight for somebody to see it. And now I'm like all of the fat in the various places, like the neck and the face, and most importantly, the belly, it's gone. It's really, really cool. So I've got 2 days left, and then I slowly bring back in oils and avocados and things like that. And but I'm gonna keep very strict about the sugar intake and stuff. I just don't want to go down that rabbit hole again. It's not healthy. It's
Yeah.
not helpful. It actually saps your energy. You get this quick hit from sugar, whatever dessert, and then you feel like crap afterwards. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I find it's more like the next day for me. It's like, oh yeah, this is great. And the next day I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't think. So yeah, I resonate with you there. What are some of the more advanced biohacks that you think have been really beneficial for you?
Yeah. Well, one of my favorites is called 40 Years of Zen.
Yes.
It's not cheap. It's $15,000, and you have to fly to Seattle for it. It's one of Dave Asprey's companies. So the founder of Bulletproof Coffee and all the Bulletproof supplements. So
Yeah.
one of the sister companies is 40 Years of Zen. And it's a week-long program, full immersion into neurofeedback with lots of these things called augmented reset processes, or ARPs, where you're digging deep into your subconscious. It's almost like um, therapy. I don't know how to describe it. It's really powerful. And when you combine that introspection with the ability to then do these long sessions of just meditating while connected to all the neurofeedback measurement devices, then you can hear, your subconscious can hear when you're on track versus off track. If you want more alpha and alpha waves, then the sound of the crashing waves are bigger when you're in alpha more. And when it's reduced, the waves get quieter. And you can't consciously manage this. You're just listening and meditating and just knowing that it's happening in the background because your brain is figuring it out on its own. You can't consciously change this. But doing this is a full immersion experience for a week. And then they feed you tons of not smart drugs, not nootropics, but all the supplements, the things that will help. Well, the unfair advantage from Bulletproof, the keto prime, and eating super healthy. They bring in a really great chef. These great catered meals that are all bulletproof diet kind of certified, and it is incredible. I had memories come to me that I hadn't had since my early childhood that were
Whoa.
unlocked through this process. It was super cool. But this one thing about it is you got to be willing to then continue with your program after you leave. And I got lazy. So the way that they describe it is that you have this new flower bed or vegetable garden, and these new shoots are appearing out of the ground because of that week-long program. Now it's time to continue to water those and feed those plants. And if you don't, you're trampling all over them. So that means you need to keep meditating. You need to do heart math, the heart brain coherence meditations, and that sort of stuff. And I didn't do any of it. I
Oops,
did
you
a
have
big
to go
fat
again.
zero of it. Yeah, yeah. So I do have to go back well, I don't have to, but I love trying new things. I'm a junkie when it comes to personal development. So I might try something new before I go back. I do want to go back to 40 years of Zen. I loved it, but I think I might try something like Vipassana first. I don't
That's
know.
some cool. And for people who are listening as well, you can do in terms of neurofeedback. Like there's a lot of apps for neurofeedback training. Obviously, the 40 years of Zen is like the
Yeah.
most advanced thing you could ever do in terms of all of that. But you can do like use some little apps, and there's some little devices you can get in order to track those things. But yeah, I think a Vipassana would
Yeah.
be crazy, because I know some like my close friends have done them and have had some like mind blowing experiences there, and they've just come back feeling a whole lot more productive, in the zone, ready to get going.
Yeah.
And that sort of leads
So,
into
so somebody who's not familiar with Vipassana, that is 10 or 12 days of absolute silence. If you would have told me a year ago that I should go do that, I would be telling you, you are nuts. I can't keep my mouth shut for a day, let alone 12. So no, no, thank you. Now I'm open to it. I keep hearing people rave about it.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like 10 days is a long time. So my kids, it's like, time would go so long. Like I think like I'm like, yeah, I could probably do a couple days, but like if we get to that 7, I'd be like, man.
Yeah, yeah. Now, just to piggyback on what you were saying about you can get apps and things like that. The thing about a true neurofeedback session is that it's connected to your brain. You're actually wearing something that is monitoring your brain, and whether you're in alpha or beta or gamma or theta or whatever, the app needs to know that. If it's guessing or it's not using any data whatsoever, it's just taking you through a one size fits all protocol. That's not the same. That's not neurofeedback. To get the helmet thing that it has like all the electrodes on it and everything is not inexpensive. They can train you at like Peak Brain Institute. I've gone to their place multiple times when I lived in LA, and did a bunch of shorter neurofeedback sessions, half-hour long neurofeedback sessions. Dr. Andrew Hill is the founder of Peak Performance Institute, and it's really great maintenance if you have a facility in like that in your area. Otherwise, you can work with them to just get the at home device. I don't know how you would hook it up yourself. You'd have to get your partner or friend or whatever to put the electrodes on, because how are you going to find where that is on the top of your head, like where to hook these up, unless you're, I don't know. Anyway, so it is possible, but just using an app like I don't know what's one of those popular ones, Calm or something like that. It's just a meditation app. You
Yeah.
can get a device that you wear over your forehead. What's that one called? Oh shoot! It's anyways,
It's the one that's like thin that
it's
goes
another
over here like
option.
this, yeah.
Yeah. So that's an option, but it's not as good as neurofeedback. It's not as real.
Yeah, or accurate.
Yeah.
I don't know when you're at. But I'd like to talk about in terms of like what you sort of do for productivity as well, because a lot of people that like are listening want to be better, be more productive, achieve more in their life, achieve more in the business and other different things. And obviously
Yeah. Yeah.
you do a lot of that. So I'm just wondering your opinion
Yeah.
and where you'd like to go in terms of that.
Mm. Okay. So, oh, and by the way, I do now remember what the device is called that kind of has a bar across your forehead. It's called the Muse.
Yeah.
I had their founder Ariel Garten on my podcast. That was a cool interview. Okay, so productivity wise, I had my first big breakthrough in regards to productivity about 12, 13, 14 years ago. And it was getting things done, GTD. That's by David Allen, famed productivity guru who has sold, I don't know how many tens of millions of copies of that book, but a very, very large number. And I fell in love with that methodology. GTD it's like air to me. If I don't have a trusted system, I'm lost. And what I used to do prior to GTD is I would write things on the back of envelopes, on post-it notes, in different notepads or notebooks. There was no one central trusted system. And so I would keep things in my head. And keeping things in your head means you have no system. Our brains are meant to be factories, not warehouses. I love that quote from David Allen. So if you keep all this stuff in your head, oh yeah, I need to stop at the store and pick up the milk and da 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 da, that is a complete utter waste of your brain capacity and the capability that you have to really think and process and problem solve and brainstorm. So think of your brain like a factory. And what does a factory need? It needs a place to park all of those good ideas, all those to-dos, all the next actions, all the projects, and it needs structure to it. A warehouse needs structure. Amazon wouldn't just throw a bunch of boxes and books and toys and stuff helter skelter in the warehouse. There's a very intricate system to it. So I learned all about this in GTD. Every action has every next action, right? So you don't have to figure out the entire project. Let's say you're going to sell a house. You don't have to know everything about every step of the process of selling a house. You just need to know what the next step is. If you don't have a realtor yet, well, hello, you need a realtor. That needs to happen before you figure out the title agent or whatever, right? Doing comps, et cetera. I need a realtor. Okay, so how am I going to get a realtor? That's more of a project because anything that's more than one action is a project. 2 actions or more is a project. So what's the one single next action I can do? Oh, well, my neighbor sold their house in like 4 hours for 300 grand more than their asking price or whatever it was, and I should totally talk to that person's realtor. So my next action is to make a phone call or walk over to the neighbor, or, if they've already moved, call them or email them, ask them for an introduction to that realtor, or at least for the name. That's a single next action that has a context to it. So that's another key piece of GTD, context, because I can't do everything and anything and everything depending on where I'm at. Right? I'm constrained. If I'm, let's say, on the road driving to, I don't know, the office or something, or to the gym, I can't send emails. I can't read books. I can listen to an audiobook, but there are a whole bunch of things I can't do. More importantly, there's a handful of things that I can do. Any phone call that doesn't require me looking stuff up, I can do while I'm driving. So I could have a context of at phone. I have to be at a phone and I can make that call. I could do that thing that requires a phone. If it's, let's say, an errand, I'm right now talking to you from the home office and I'm not in my car. I'm not going anywhere. So anything that's an errand is irrelevant to be looking at when I'm sitting in my home office, right? So those contexts of at errand would only be applicable if I'm on the road or I'm about to go run some errands and I need to see if there's anything else that I could maybe do on the way. So those are context. And then I can filter by context very easily with GTD supporting apps. I use an app called Things by Cultured Code. It's a great app, and it makes it very easy to capture all the stuff and contextualize it and filter and There are different kinds of lists that you have besides the next action list. There's a someday maybe list. There's a waiting for list. There's a project list. All that is supported inside of an app like Things, or OmniFocus is an alternative if you're more into that app instead. So this is, I don't know, it's kind of like a religion. GTD, for the followers, the aficionados of it, they love it to death. They can't imagine life without it. And it is very, very helpful. The one thing that I will caution you on is that there's an aspect of GTD that I'm not good at. And it's been the bane of my existence. And that is the weekly review. I don't do the weekly review. And it makes the efficacy and the value of GTD much, much less. I don't know what it is about not doing these weekly reviews, but I've tried for years to get into a routine of doing it. Maybe I'll try it again now that we're talking about it. But I got really lax about it, and then I stopped doing it, and then I couldn't start it. And I interviewed him on my podcast, and he said, it's just as easy to fall back on the wagon as it is to fall off of it.
True.
And so, yeah, do the weekly review. It's really, really, really critical, because that gives you the opportunity to look back at the week and say, well, what did I do well? What did I not do well? What are my wins? What are the open loops that I need to close? What are the someday maybes that I need to look at, maybe making next actions or projects instead of letting them to continue to sit in someday maybe? If you never look at your someday maybe, how are you going to know out of those whatever number of things that any of them are ready to be actioned or important to be actioned at this point? You got to review this stuff. So that's my only cautionary tale there on that. So I love productivity, but it's not a game of getting more done. It's not a game of getting things done more efficiently. It's a game.
Hold on, we just cut out there for a second.
On your deathbed and say, I'm glad I did that.
So what was that?
And so that's the trap, is that you get you got to look back on the things that you've done in your lifetime on your deathbed and say, I'm proud of myself for doing those things. And if you're not doing them because the four quadrants, Steve Covey, urgent and important, urgent, not important, not urgent, important, not urgent, not important. And a lot of people who think that they're productivity nerds and very effective are spending most of their life in urgent and important. Well, that urgent, not important is the stuff where on your deathbed, you're going to say, oh, damn it, I blew it. That important, not urgent quadrant is the lifeblood of life. That's where you spend the time going to your son's baseball games, and you read that book you've been putting off. It's all about how to improve your marriage or whatever, right? So you do the stuff that's hard, that's easy to procrastinate, that doesn't have a deadline. You do it anyways.
How do you think all of this stuff, like all this productivity, biohacking, working on yourself, how's it benefited you and your business?
Oh, like gangbusters. It's been amazing. I mean, I had a successful exit in 2010, sold my company to a larger agency, and then that agency got acquired about 4 years after that. So I made money both times. If I didn't have systems in place, processes, the ability to unplug and recharge, I actually took a 5 month sabbatical, completely unplugged from the business. Nobody could reach me. I was gone. And I needed that because I was starting to burn out. I was back in like 2007. You need to be able to take care of yourself and build things in a sustainable fashion. This idea of like Gary V's hustle until you collapse sort of mentality doesn't work. That's not what life's about. So I've gotten the most juice out of life by slowing down. You slow down to go fast.
Yeah. What would you do differently like, because you said you took the 5 month sabbatical, with all the stuff that you've learned now, I was saying obviously you had all these lessons and you've learned all this stuff. So obviously I assume that like, yeah, I wouldn't actually do things differently because I wouldn't be here where I am now. But I'd
Yeah.
just like to know, just in terms of like, for the purpose of people who are listening, if they're like, you know, because a lot of people who are listening are roughly in their like mid 20s to mid 30s. I was like, and a lot of them are running businesses and doing all these different things. It's like, what would you like either like probably say to yourself if you were giving yourself advice in terms of being able to be more productive, more sustainable, and more fulfilled
Mm.
throughout like your business journey?
Yeah. I would say meditate and do something that will get you connected to the the creative force,
Yeah,
to the all that is, right? To your higher power. Because the sooner that reveals itself to you, the whatever you want to call it, the matrix, right? The veil gets thinned. And a fun little trivia fact for you. I used to think that the apocalypse was the end of the world, but apocalypsis in Greek actually means thinning of the veils. So people talking about, oh, the apocalypse is coming, the apocalypse is coming. That's actually a good thing because that means that the veils are thinning between this reality and the greater reality. And in Kabbalah, they refer to the 1% reality and the 99% reality. We're in the 1%. The 99% of what's real and out there in the universe and beyond, in the multiverse, is so much more than we can possibly comprehend. Like if we were to take just one tiny sliver of the 1% reality that we're in and just study, let's say, quantum mechanics our whole lifetime, we wouldn't even like be able to scratch the surface of how deep just that aspect of this part of the 1% reality is. Like it's the rabbit hole is very deep. And so if you just take the time to ponder that, to be aware of your awareness, not just aware, but aware of your awareness. That's very meta. It changes everything. So I'd say meditate because also prayer is one directional. It's great. It's important. Do it. But that's only talking to your higher power. What about listening? You can receive messages, you can receive downloads, you can receive signs, you can get without a doubt signs. If you just simply ask for it, you can receive prophetic dreams, you can receive visions. It's incredible. I talked to friends who I've known for very long periods of time that I thought of as just straight laced business people, hard driving, no nonsense. And I tell them, like, I just interviewed a lady who channels 12 archangels. And they're like, whoa, tell me more about that because I just saw an angel last year. I'm like, what? You saw an
what?
angel?
Yeah.
And this is a hard driving business person who those are the last words I would have expected to hear out of that person's mouth. Right? Stuff's happening. Things are very much in flux right now. So my advice to my younger self would be meditate, listen, because when you are meditating, you're in a receptive mode for receiving the signs, the messages, the downloads, all that. Because if you're only talking, it's a one-way conversation. That's not truly a conversation. So praying and meditating is the one-two punch. And then a corollary to that is to do some self evaluation, not just meditate and quiet the mind, the monkey mind, but also to look hard at one's self, at our evil inclinations, at our ego, and the unfinished business that we have in relationships with others, because this stuff is going to come back. You might
Yeah.
think this person's well out of my life. That person I dumped in college who I just broke her heart, and that was 20 years ago. C'est la vie. Oh no, that crap's coming back to you next lifetime. That's how it works. Like this, it's called the law of cause and effect. karma.
I'd also say to
So
that is like how if someone was interested in doing that and working on themselves, and they're like, all right, cool, I want to do this like integrative work, but like, how do I actually do it? Like, what do I do?
yeah, you could start with breath work. You could do Curtis Thomas is a great breath work guy. He's got this breath work detox protocol, and it's like a 45-minute session over Zoom, and you just kind of somewhat hyperventilate. You get this tetany feeling in your hands and face and stuff, and you'll have potentially some very extrasensory experiences, let's just say, right? You could, yeah, it's pretty powerful because what happens is it releases a lot of DMT. Your body is producing the DMT, which then gives you this spiritual experience, very powerful one. You can, of course, do plant medicine. That hasn't been my path. I've chosen not to do ayahuasca or combo or any of that. I know people who have had powerful, powerful experiences from it, but that's up to you. The mushrooms or whatever, that needs to be done very thoughtfully, carefully, and with supervision from a shaman, somebody who's well trained, who's got the spiritual chops for it. And again, all disclaimers apply. I'm not your doctor, etc.
Yeah, thank you. And kind of leading on the same line of that question is just trying to like speak directly to the audience at the moment. If if there was someone out there who is had some success, started to like really succeed in business, has some financial success, and they sort of get to that point in their life where they're like, I really want to start investing in myself. What would you suggest someone in that scenario to start doing?
Well, for me, it was a Tony Robbins event that shook me awake. In
Love that.
2009,
Love
I
that.
was in a I was in a bad state. I was
Yeah.
depressed. I was recently divorced
Yep.
after 18 years of marriage, and I was not resourceful at that moment. And three different friends who I thought highly of independently recommended within a 1 or 2 week time period, you got to go to this Tony Robbins event stuff. And it was called Unleash the Power Within. I had no idea what I was in for, but when I went there, the first night you walk on 2,000-degree hot coals in your bare feet.
Thanks.
And I did it without burning or even getting a blister on my feet. And I thought, wow, if I can do that, I can do anything. And so I went through all these big changes. 3 weeks after, finally went and got LASIK because I was scared to death of having surgery in my eye so I could not have to wear glasses anymore. Boom. It was a huge success, super easy. I don't know why I was fretting over it for all those years. I just did it. I do it. You just do it. 3 months
Yeah.
after, I went and got a hair transplant. I was losing my hair big time. I look completely different now than I did. I like the age difference between the receding hairline version of me from 15 years ago and the version of me now. I look younger now than I did 15 years ago. Maybe even
Crazy.
10 years younger now than I did 15 years ago. Yeah.
Crazy. So if you're listening, head to a Tony Robbins event and that'll damn well sort you out.
Yeah. Yeah. I went full tilt into Tony Robbins for a few years. I went to all of his events. I joined his platinum partnership, which is a super high level program. You spend 6 figures a year with Tony and you get all these exclusive trips. That's how I had my spiritual epiphany in 2012 in India. It was at an exclusive platinum partnership Tony Robbins event. People who were paying 6 figures a year to Tony were there and nobody else. And it was amazing. It was so amazing. I mean, all of his plat trips were amazing, but that one that took me to a whole other level. So I have a lot to thank Tony Robbins for. I found my wife at a Tony Robbins event. And
Whoa.
I didn't find her. She was given to me. You know,
Yeah.
because I just gotten from a Tony Robbins, from the Platt trip in India with the big awakening event that happened. 2 months later, I was at Date with Destiny, which is an amazing event. I highly recommend it. That's his best event. The last day of his event, of the event, I'm working on my poster board, my mission statement, my away from value, my away from values towards values, power virtues, and most importantly, my relationship vision. So I wrote that up, and then I connected to my divine, to the creator, and I asked for this person to show up right away. And I was very specific. I used those words, right away. 12 hours later, we were introduced by a mutual friend. And 18 hours after that, I said, I love you to her. And she said it back. 9 days
Whoa.
after we met, I proposed to her, and I had the ring and everything in a hot air balloon above the Las Vegas desert. And she said no. Oh, she said no. Because she had
Oh,
some sense
you
about it,
got me.
right? Because it was
Yeah.
9 days, right?
Yeah.
So that was a very awkward 20-minute descent back down to earth, with lots of crying and a very shocked pilot of the hot air balloon. But
What a
it
story,
brought
man.
us even closer together. And then 9 months later, I reproposed, and she did say yes then. So it's a very happy ending. Not a ending; it's a beginning. It's beautiful, and she's my soulmate. I knew she was my soulmate 5 minutes after meeting her, and the way I did was because I learned how to give these oneness blessings, these dikshas, putting my hands on people's heads, like in India, and on that same trip. And when I did for her, because she asked for it, that the last day of Date with Destiny, they do this. The whole thousands of people in the room all get dikshas, except not everyone gets one. Most people get touched, but it's a little chaotic there. And she didn't get touched. She didn't get a diksha. And when she told me that, I'm like, oh, I can give you one. I learned how to do it. She's like, okay, please do it. We had just met. It was like 5 or 10 minutes into meeting her. And I was
Whoa.
praying for her so much. Like, I knew she was my soulmate when I was doing that. Because the more you pray for somebody as you're giving them a diksha, the more divine grace comes through you, flows through you into that person. And I prayed for her like she was my soulmate. And I'm like, oh, wow, she's the one. She is the one. So then I immediately started making plans, figuring out how to get the ring and not letting her know that I was working on that and everything. Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. And what a powerful story.
Yeah.
Like,
It's so
I think,
anti pickup because I was learning pickup from one of the top world experts on that, Neil Strauss. I was in his mastermind, his secret society.
yeah.
And I learned all of the skills, all the negging, all that sort of stuff. And I threw it all
This
out
one
the
went out the
window. I
window.
went totally,
Yes.
totally anti pickup, did everything wrong. And it ended up being exactly the right thing to do because I just trusted. I trusted that I was being guided, and I was. And it all has worked out amazingly. We've got a beautiful son now, and it's a very blessed life. I'm very, very, very grateful.
Yeah, I'm just super happy for you, man. And thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that story. Man, I
Yeah.
think we've covered so much good stuff on this podcast. We went from like psychic to business stuff, biohacking to relationship. It's just been awesome, man. Thank you so much. For people
You
who are
bet.
listening, man, where can they like best find you if they want to find your stuff?
Yeah. So, well, my two podcasts are Get Yourself Optimized. So that's getyourselfoptimized.com and Marketing Speak. Marketingspeak.com is that website. So that one's pretty obvious. It's about marketing, everything from Facebook ads to SEO, of course, to e-commerce and analytics and paid search and everything else. And then Get Yourself Optimized is much more spiritually focused now these days since I had the big awakening in January. But yeah, still plenty of biohacking episodes. I had the founder of the DNA company on recently, for example, Kashif Khan and or Kashif Khan. It's a fun podcast. It's definitely a labor of love for me. And then my main website is stephanspencer.com. And and also my agency website for SEO services and web marketing is netconcepts.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thanks for coming onto the show, man, and sharing all the good stuff. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it was fun. It was fun. I didn't know that I was going to get into the psychic stuff. So, but boom, right
It's
away.
always been a
I
fun
just
to
follow
straight
my,
away.
I just follow my intuition, and that's where it ended leading me to. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good. I'm sure we all enjoyed that one. Thanks, Stephan.
Thank you, Corey.